My best friend's husband kept staring at me dinner. Then he texted me later, "We need to talk." In private. My hands shook as I read the message. I'm still in shock over what happened. I never thought I'd be writing a story like this, but I feel like I need to get it out of my system. My best friend Claire and I have known each other since college. We've been through a lot together. We laugh, we argue, and we've seen each other at our best and worst. Over the years, she's married David, and I've gotten to know him, too. He's always been polite, a little on the quiet side, but nothing that stood out as weird. He was fine. I didn't think much of him, honestly. He seemed to love Claire, and they appeared like the perfect couple. It all started at a dinner at their place. Claire and David had invited me over for a casual get-together. It was supposed to be a fun evening, nothing out of the ordinary. But from the moment I walked in, something felt off. Maybe I was just tired, maybe my nerves were up, but the way David was looking at me made me uncomfortable. He wasn't his usual self. Normally, he'd give me a friendly hug, talk about the weather, maybe crack a joke about something we'd done in the past. But this time, there was no warm greeting. He just stood there. And then it hit me, his eyes. They were glued to me, but not in the way that someone looks at a friend. It wasn't casual. His gaze was intense, piercing, like he was studying me. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself I was just being paranoid. But as the night went on, I couldn't shake the feeling. Every time I looked up, he was staring at me. Not at Claire, not at anything else in the room. Just me. It felt like I was being watched, and I couldn't understand why. I kept telling myself I was overreacting. Maybe I was just reading too much into it. But the more I noticed, the more uncomfortable I became. We ate dinner, laughed a little, talked about old times, but all the while, I could feel David's eyes on me. Even when I spoke, he didn't seem to care what I was saying. It was like he was focused on something else entirely. Every now and then, he'd nod, as if he was acknowledging me, but it felt fake. Like he wasn't really listening, just nodding for the sake of it. I glanced over at Claire, who was deep in conversation with me, laughing, completely oblivious to the strange dynamic unfolding between David and me. I tried not to make it worse. I didn't want to be rude or cause any tension, so I didn't mention it to Claire. But as the evening wore on, I noticed something else. David didn't look at her the same way. There was no affection in his eyes, no softness in his voice. He barely seemed to notice when she spoke, like she wasn't even there. I didn't know what to make of it. My mind was racing, but I didn't know how to confront him about it. The dinner ended, and we lingered in the living room. I told myself that I needed to leave. The atmosphere felt wrong. I needed to get out of there. But as I stood up to leave, David caught my eye again. This time, it was different. He didn't say much. Just a quiet take care. But his eyes held something more, like he was waiting for me to say something or do something. I couldn't look away for a moment. I felt like I was trapped in his gaze. It was as if I was under some kind of spell. He was trying to tell me something without saying a word. I made my escape as quickly as I could. Claire walked me to the door, still oblivious to the weird vibe between us. She hugged me goodbye, and I left, my heart pounding the entire way to my car. That night, I tried to push everything out of my mind. I tried to tell myself that it was all in my head. But as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about how David had looked at me. I kept wondering if he'd been trying to flirt, or if I was just being paranoid. I was scared. I couldn't explain why, but something about the way he looked at me felt wrong. It wasn't just a passing glance. It was something deeper. And then it happened. My phone buzzed. I picked it up, half expecting some random message from a friend or a notification from social media. But no, it was a text message. I didn't recognize the number at first, but as soon as I saw it, I froze. It was from David. "We need to talk, in private." My heart stopped. My hands started shaking. I couldn't understand why he was texting me. What did he want? I reread the message, telling myself it must be a mistake. Maybe he had meant to text Claire. Maybe it was just a weird, random message he accidentally sent to me. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was overthinking it. Maybe he just wanted to discuss something harmless. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't ignore it. "We need to talk in private." Why private? Why me? I stared at the message for what felt like hours. My mind raced, trying to figure out if I should respond, or if I should just ignore it. But ignoring it didn't feel like an option. I didn't know if I could live with not knowing. After what felt like an eternity, I typed out a response. "What do you want to talk about?" I pressed send before I could talk myself out of it. The message sat there for a minute as I waited for a reply, but nothing came. I felt like I was going to be sick. Why did I do this? Why did I even respond? Finally, the phone buzzed again. "It's better if we talk in person. Tonight, at 8. Tonight?" My heart dropped. Was he serious? What the hell was going on? Why did he want to meet me alone? I wanted to run, to pretend like it never happened, but I couldn't. The curiosity was eating me alive. I needed to know what this was all about. I spent the next few hours torn. Should I go? Should I just block him and forget it ever happened? But the part of me that couldn't let it go won. I put on my jacket, trying to ignore the cold sweat on my skin, and drove over to their place. I had no idea what I was walking into. When I arrived, I wasn't sure if I should knock or just turn around and leave. My stomach twisted in knots, and I felt like a fool. But I had to know. I couldn't live with the questions. So, I knocked. David opened the door. His expression was calm, too calm. He smiled at me like nothing was wrong, like this was just a casual conversation. Thanks for coming, he said, his voice low. Let's sit down. I followed him inside, my pulse pounding in my ears. We sat at their kitchen table, the room so quiet I could hear the sound of my own breathing. He stared at me for a few seconds, and it felt like the air between us was thick with something unspoken. I know this might seem strange, but I can't stop thinking about what happened last night, David said, his voice barely above a whisper. I froze. My throat tightened. What did he mean? Was this about the way he looked at me? Was he going to confess something? My mind raced, but I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, waiting. He let out a small sigh, like this was something weighing on him. I can't stop thinking about you. I don't know how to explain it, but I felt this way for a while now. And I can't keep pretending like I don't. My heart sank. What was he saying? Was this a joke? Was this some kind of test? I opened my mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. My mind was spinning. What had I gotten myself into? And more importantly, how the hell was I supposed to get out of this mess? End of part 1. Let me know if you'd like me to continue or make any adjustments. I didn't know what to say. My mouth was dry, and my mind raced. I was frozen, sitting across from him, unsure of what to do next. My best friend's husband, David, had just confessed that he couldn't stop thinking about me. His words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. It felt like the world had stopped moving, like nothing mattered except that moment. David was still watching me, waiting for a response, but I couldn't even find my voice. His eyes were intense, but not in the way they had been the night before. This was something different, something darker. I wanted to scream, to run out of the room, but my legs felt like lead. I felt trapped. He leaned in, his voice lowering even more. I know this is insane, he said, but I can't pretend anymore. I've been holding this in for months, and it's only gotten worse. I've tried to stop, but every time I see you, I can't control it. I'm sorry. My stomach churned. This wasn't just a passing flirtation. This was something deeper, something he'd been hiding for a long time. I wanted to yell at him, to call him out for betraying Claire, for using me as some kind of escape. But I couldn't. My body was still frozen, paralyzed by his confession. You've been holding this in? I managed to choke out, barely able to get the words past my lips. For months. David nodded, looking almost guilty, but not enough to back away from what he was saying. Yes, but I can't help it. I don't want to feel this way, but I do. And I need you to know. I didn't know what to think. Everything was spinning. My mind was screaming at me to run, to get out of there. But then, a voice deep inside whispered, what if this is your only chance to know the truth? I had to know why. Why now? Why me? Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice shaking, not because I was afraid of him, but because I was afraid of myself, afraid of what I might do next. David's gaze softened, but there was something darker behind his eyes. Because I can't keep pretending like everything's normal. I've tried to keep it from you, but after last night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I don't want to hide this anymore. I felt sick. My heart raced, and I could feel it hammering against my chest. I wanted to yell at him, to tell him to leave me alone, that this was insane. But something inside me made me stay. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the fear of confronting this mess. Whatever it was, I couldn't leave. I was too deep in it now. David reached across the table, his hand hovering near mine. You don't have to say anything right now, he said softly. But I need you to know how I feel. I jerked my hand back, instinctively pulling away from him. My mind was screaming at me, don't touch me. Don't let this happen. But David didn't move his hand away. He kept it there, waiting, as if he expected me to reach out and meet him halfway. I couldn't handle it. The room felt smaller, suffocating, as his words echoed in my head. The image of Claire, my best friend, popped into my mind. How could he do this to her? How could he betray her like this? Claire doesn't know, does she? I whispered, barely able to keep the words from shaking. David's face faltered for a second. He looked away, his eyes darting nervously, like he was caught in a lie. For a brief moment, I saw guilt flash across his face, and then he recovered, nodding slowly. No, she doesn't know. She can't know. I don't want to hurt her. I can't stop feeling this way. And it's eating me up inside. My heart pounded even faster now, a mixture of disgust and anger washing over me. This wasn't just some minor slip-up or mistake. This was deliberate. He was willing to destroy his marriage, my friendship, just because he couldn't control himself. I stood up suddenly, my chair scraping against the floor loudly, making both of us jump. This is insane, I spat. You're telling me you've been thinking about this for months, and you thought the best way to handle it was to, what? Tell me in private? Have some affair behind Claire's back? David didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on mine, and I could see something there, a kind of desperation, like he needed me to understand. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I didn't plan any of this. I never meant to hurt her. I never meant to hurt you. Then why are you doing it? I demanded, my voice rising. Why now? Why after all these years? David's face hardened, his expression changing from regret to something else, something more cold. Because I can't keep lying to myself anymore. I've tried. I tried to push these feelings away, but they're stronger than I am. I'm not proud of it, but I can't ignore it any longer. A surge of anger coursed through me. How dare he act like this was some kind of personal struggle that justified his actions? This isn't about feelings, David. This is about you making a choice to cross a line that never should have been crossed. You didn't try to stop. You didn't try hard enough. David opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway cut him off. I froze, my heart leaping into my throat. Claire was home. I rushed toward the door, my mind in overdrive. I didn't know what to do. My instincts told me to run, but I couldn't. Not yet. I had to hear him out, had to get to the bottom of this. I stood by the door, my hand on the handle, torn between running and staying. David stood silently behind me, watching me, his face a mixture of fear and frustration. Please don't tell her, he said, his voice pleading. This doesn't have to be the end. We can fix this. Fix this. How could anything be fixed after this? Claire was about to walk in, and I didn't know what I was supposed to say. I could feel the weight of the lie hanging over us, threatening to tear everything apart. I glanced at David one last time before opening the door. His eyes were still locked on me, waiting for my decision, hoping I would keep his secret. I stepped outside, closing the door quietly behind me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. Claire was walking toward the house now, completely unaware of the chaos waiting inside. I had a choice to make, but I wasn't sure what the right choice was anymore. Let me know if you want to continue or need any changes to the plot. I couldn't breathe. The air outside felt too thick, too heavy. The weight of what David had just confessed to me pressed down on my chest, and I felt like I was drowning. My thoughts were a mess. What did I just do? I was standing at the edge of their driveway, trying to clear my head, but I couldn't stop thinking about Claire walking in. What would I tell her? Should I tell her? How could I tell her this? My mind spun with questions, and I didn't have answers. As Claire approached the front door, I stood frozen, barely able to move. My heart was beating so loudly I could hear the thud in my ears. She was only a few steps away, laughing about something with her phone in her hand, completely oblivious to the storm I was standing in the middle of. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to face her. But as she got closer, I knew I couldn't run anymore. She would see through me. She always did. Hey, you okay? Claire's voice startled me. I turned to face her, trying my best to act normal, but I was sure she could see right through the facade. I smiled weakly, the smile feeling foreign on my lips. Yeah, just needed a minute to myself. Claire narrowed her eyes, then smiled. You've been acting a little off all night. Are you sure? My stomach dropped. She knew. I didn't want to tell her. I couldn't, but the guilt started gnawing at me. Yeah, just tired, I said quickly, hoping she'd buy it. She looked at me for a moment longer, but then shrugged and pushed open the door. Inside, David was still standing by the kitchen table, waiting for me. The look on his face said everything I needed to know. He knew the moment Claire walked in, all his plans would be exposed. But he wasn't acting the way someone who'd just made a huge mistake would. No, he was too calm, too composed, and I couldn't figure out why. Claire walked in, and her smile faltered when she noticed the tension in the room. I could see it in her eyes. She looked back and forth between David and me, trying to make sense of what was happening. What's going on? Claire asked, crossing her arms. She had caught something, I could tell. My stomach churned even more. I didn't know how to answer her without shattering everything. David, who had been eerily silent for the past few seconds, finally spoke. Claire, I need to talk to you about something. Something important. His voice was flat, emotionless. It felt rehearsed, like he had been planning to say this for days, maybe weeks. But there was no warmth in his words, just cold reality. Claire's face went pale. What do you mean? What is it, David? David hesitated for just a moment, and that brief pause made me feel like my heart was going to explode. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I've been lying to you. Those words hit me like a slap. I wanted to scream, to shout at him that it wasn't just him lying, that I was involved too. But I couldn't get the words out. It was too late to stop this. I had to sit there and watch him unravel the life he had built with Claire. Claire blinked at him, confused. Lying about what? David shifted uncomfortably in his seat. About how I feel. About everything. I could see Claire's confusion turning into something else. A mix of hurt and disbelief, something far more dangerous than confusion. What the hell are you talking about? I have feelings for someone else, David said, his voice strained. His words hung in the air like poison, sinking into the space between us. It was clear now that this wasn't just some confession, it was a manipulation. But why? Who? Claire's voice was barely above a whisper. She looked from David to me, and I could feel her starting to put the pieces together. She was starting to see the connection. She was starting to see the truth, even if she wasn't ready to admit it. David's eyes flickered to me, then quickly back to Claire. It's her. My blood ran cold. Claire's gaze snapped to me. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her processing everything. The way David looked at me. The way I had been acting. The way everything suddenly made sense in her mind. Wait. What? Claire's voice cracked, disbelief flooding her tone. You're telling me that after everything. She choked on her words, the realization hitting her like a freight train. I couldn't keep it in anymore. I didn't ask for this, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want this. David, he just told me how he felt. I didn't ask for any of this, Claire. You have to believe me. Claire shook her head, her face a mixture of anger and heartbreak. I can't believe this. I can't believe you would do this to me, David. I trusted you. I trusted both of you. Her voice was breaking as she stepped away from him. You don't even have the decency to feel ashamed. You've been lying to me all this time. David opened his mouth to say something, but Claire didn't let him. No, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything from you. The room went silent. I could feel the weight of everything we had just said hanging in the air. Claire looked from me to David, her face twisted with hurt. Is this what you've been doing? Lying to me for months. She spat at him, her voice rising. How long has this been going on? How long have you been thinking about her? David's face turned red, his eyes darting nervously. It's not what you think, Claire. I never meant for it to go this far. Then why did you come here? Why did you tell me this now? Claire demanded. Why now, David? If you really loved me, you wouldn't have done this. David's voice dropped, his tone suddenly cold. I told you because I couldn't keep pretending. I can't keep living a lie. I'm tired of lying to myself, and to you. I could see the cracks in Claire's composure. She was no longer the smiling, carefree friend I'd known for so long. She was breaking apart in front of me, and I felt like I was the cause of it. The guilt was crushing. I can't believe you, Claire said, her eyes filling with tears. I thought you were different. I thought we had something real. I wanted to scream, to beg her to forgive me, but the words wouldn't come. I had no right to ask for forgiveness. I had let this happen, and now everything was falling apart, piece by piece. Claire looked at me, and for the first time, there was no kindness in her eyes. Just anger. I trusted you. I thought you were my best friend. She turned and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind her with so much force the walls shook. I stood there in the silence that followed, the weight of everything crashing down on me. What had just happened? Where did we go from here? David didn't say anything. He just stood there, looking defeated. I felt his gaze on me, but I couldn't look at him. Not anymore. I felt trapped in this mess, with no way out. I stood there, my hands trembling at my sides, as the door slammed shut behind Claire. The silence in the room was deafening. The storm had broken, and I was standing in the eye of it. David remained frozen by the kitchen table, his hands balled into fists. He didn't look at me. Instead, he stared at the door Claire had just walked through. She's not going to forgive me, is she? He whispered, his voice hollow. It wasn't a question. He already knew the answer. No, I replied quietly. My heart was heavy in my chest. She won't. David's head dropped, and he let out a low, frustrated sound. His anger seemed to be replaced by something else, regret, perhaps, but more than that, there was something darker behind his eyes. You should have never said anything, David. I whispered, still processing the overwhelming weight of what had just happened. Not like this. Not now. He turned to face me, his eyes burning with an intensity that I hadn't seen in them before. I never wanted it to go this far, he said, his voice growing louder, more defensive. But I couldn't keep hiding it from her. I couldn't keep pretending, and I sure as hell couldn't pretend to be your friend anymore. You're the one who doesn't get it. I recoiled at his words. I didn't ask for this. I shouted back. I never wanted this to happen. You're the one who lied. You're the one who betrayed her. This is all on you. Not me. David's face twisted with frustration, and I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Anger. Yes, but also something else that I didn't understand. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I did. And now we're here. You're right. It's all my fault. But you let it happen too. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I had to hold it together. For Claire. For everything we built together. I was trying to keep it together, David. I was trying to protect her, I said, my voice shaking. But now, I don't know what to do. David shook his head, his face a mask of disbelief. You don't get it. It was never about protecting her, or us. This has always been about me. My feelings. It's been too long, and I needed to do something. My mind screamed at me to leave, to walk out the door and not look back. But the guilt in my chest chained me to that moment. I had to face the truth, even if it shattered everything. Even if it tore apart the friendships and the trust one had left. And then I heard it, the sound of footsteps in the hallway. My heart dropped. Claire was back. Her eyes were red, and I could see the tears she had been fighting to keep at bay. Her hands were clenched into fists at her sides, and her face was a mask of pain and anger. She stepped into the kitchen, glaring at both of us. The storm was far from over. You've said your piece, David, Claire said coldly, her voice barely above a whisper, but the venom behind her words was unmistakable. Now it's my turn. David didn't say anything. He just stood there, his shoulders slumped in defeat. But I could feel the tension between them, the explosive power that had been building for months. Claire wasn't done yet. She was just getting started. I can't believe you, she said, her voice trembling with barely controlled rage. I gave you everything. Everything. And this is how you repay me? By betraying me with my best friend. The words hit me like a slap. I hadn't realized just how deep the wound went, just how much this had destroyed her. I opened my mouth to apologize, to try to explain, but Claire cut me off. I don't want to hear it, she snapped, her eyes flashing with anger. I don't want to hear how sorry you are, or how it was a mistake, because it's not. You knew what you were doing. You knew exactly what you were doing. She turned to David, her voice breaking now. And you. I never thought I would see the day when you do this to me. But here we are. David opened his mouth to speak, but Claire raised a hand, stopping him. No. No more excuses. No more lies. I've been your wife for years, David. I trusted you. I trusted both of you. But now I see the truth. Her voice broke on the last word, and for the first time, I saw her as vulnerable, as lost. This wasn't the strong, confident Claire I knew. This was a woman broken by the one person she thought she could rely on. I never wanted to hurt you, Claire, David said, his voice quieter now. But I couldn't keep living this lie. I love you, but I love her too. My stomach twisted. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Love her too? What kind of sick, twisted love was this? Claire's eyes widened, and then something shifted in her. Her anger transformed into a cold, calculating glare. You love her too? Really? You know what? Fine. Go be with her, then. I'm done. I can't even look at you right now. David's eyes widened in shock, his face contorting with disbelief. Claire, no. I don't want to hear it, she said, cutting him off with a wave of her hand. I'm done. Get out of my house. You've ruined everything. Everything. David stood frozen, looking like a man who had just been struck by lightning. His jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought he was going to protest. But he didn't. Instead, he walked toward the door, slowly, painfully. He turned back to look at me, his eyes full of something I couldn't name. But then he left. He walked out of the house. And just like that, it was over. I stood in the middle of the room, my hand shaking as Claire collapsed onto the couch, her sobs echoing through the empty house. I wanted to comfort her, to apologize, to fix everything, but I knew there was no fixing it now. The damage had been done. The trust was broken. I spent the next few days in a daze. I couldn't get the image of Claire crying out of my head. I couldn't stop hearing her words. I trusted you. I tried to apologize, but Claire wouldn't speak to me. She'd locked herself away in her room, and I was left to reflect on what had happened. I thought about what I'd done, how I'd allowed it to go this far. How had I let myself get involved in this? I didn't know anymore. David tried to reach out, but I ignored his texts, his calls. I couldn't face him. I couldn't look at him anymore. Claire eventually spoke to me, but only once, and it wasn't a conversation. It was more of a final goodbye. I can't even look at you right now. Don't come near me, she said. I can't do this anymore. And just like that, I lost everything. My best friend. The man I thought I knew. Everything was gone. I think about everything that happened, every lie, every glance, every mistake. I regret it all. But I also understand something now. Betrayal isn't just about cheating. It's about lies, about secrets. It's about losing trust, and once it's gone, it's hard to ever get it back. I still don't know where Claire is. I haven't seen her in months. I've tried to move on, but I don't think I ever will. What I did to her, what I allowed to happen, it will haunt me for the rest of my life. And David? I have no idea where he is. He tried to justify his actions, but there was no justification. I don't know if I'll ever forgive him for what he did. But I think, deep down, I'm glad he's gone. Sometimes, the only way to move forward is to leave the past behind. As for me, I'm just trying to live with the guilt, to somehow make peace with myself. But I don't know if that's even possible anymore.